Hello everyone, I'm Menduk. Welcome to my new video. If you have used or are currently using AI chatbot applications, like ChatGPT or Gemini on a daily basis, then you're probably already familiar with the feature thinking in these applications. So the AI will display chain of thought, which is a sequence of thoughts that looks really magical, showing off its ability to think in detail and reason logically like a human before it gives the final answer. So this thinking AI is advertised as being able to plan on its own, fix its own mistakes, and solve complex problems that require brainpower. So behind this thinking feature are the LRMs, large reasoning models. I'll temporarily translate that as large reasoning models. The most popular ones include O1, O3 from OpenAI, Gemini Thinking from Google, DeepSeek R1 or Claude 3.7 Sonnet Thinking. These large reasoning models are the next generation of AI, the next step, an evolution from LLMs, the large language models, characterized by reasoning mechanisms like chain of thought. A chain of thought with the ability for self-reflection. So LRMs are creating a revolution and demonstrating the power of AI with the ability to think, to reason in order to solve problems. But does AI really, think? Or is it just an illusion of thinking, playing on our psychology? So a few days ago, Apple published a research paper on this very topic. The findings of this study might actually surprise you. According to the paper, even though large reasoning models like O1, O3 from OpenAI, Google Gemini Thinking, DeepSeek R1, Claude 3.7 Sonnet Thinking have shown very promising results on reasoning tests, but their fundamental capabilities, scalability, and limitations still aren't clearly or thoroughly understood. The authors argue that current evaluations mainly focus on tests in math and programming that are already established, emphasizing the accuracy of the final answer. However, this evaluation model is often affected by data contamination, meaning data pollution. Simply put, it means that the test questions might already exist in the AI model's training data set. It's a kind of cheating. Besides that, these models also don't provide detailed information about the structure and quality of the reasoning traces. So, to overcome these limitations, the research uses controllable puzzle environments that can be managed, allowing the complexity to be systematically adjusted by tweaking puzzle elements, while still preserving the core logic, and checking both the solution and the internal reasoning, not just evaluating the final result. Okay. This setup will allow analysis of not only the final answers, but also the traces of reasoning inside, thereby providing a deeper insight into how large reasoning models think. The 4 puzzle environments used in this study are: first is the Tower of Hanoi. Basically, it's about moving disks across pegs, and the complexity is controlled by the number of disks, which increases the difficulty exponentially. Not related, but when I was reading this part, I also felt surprised and amused to suddenly see the name Hanoi here. Turns out, this game, in the West, is actually called the Tower of Hanoi. Alright, second, checker jumping, which means jumping checkers. Swap the positions of the colored pieces and an empty space. The complexity is determined by the number of pieces, and the difficulty also increases exponentially. Third, river crossing means crossing the river. This involves transporting the characters across the river with certain constraints regarding safety and capacity. The complexity is determined by the number of pairs. And fourth is block world, which means the world of blocks. Rearrange the blocks from the initial configuration to the target configuration. The complexity is determined by the number of blocks. These puzzles represent different depths, structures, and levels of complexity in planning, allowing for a comprehensive analysis of the behavior of large reasoning models. What are the advantages of using these puzzle problems? First, the difficulty of the problem can be systematically increased in a methodical way. For example, adding a disk to the Tower of Hanoi game makes the problem exponentially harder. Second, it eliminates the possibility of cheating by memorizing the answers. Third, it forces the AI to actually reason algorithmically instead of just pattern matching, like, spotting patterns. Those templates to match things up. So through various extended experiments on a wide range of puzzles, the researchers at Apple came up with the following 5 key findings. The first finding: large reasoning models have 3 performance modes, depending on the complexity of the problem. With simple problems, AI tends to overthink. When the problem reaches a certain threshold of complexity, all large reasoning models show a complete collapse in accuracy. In other words, they completely fail to solve the problem. When comparing large reasoning models with non-reasoning models of similar scale, for example comparing DeepSeek R1 with DeepSeek R3, or Claude 3.7 Sonnet Thinking with Claude 3.7 Sonnet, the study identifies 3 distinct performance modes. First, on easy tasks, non-reasoning models can achieve performance that is equivalent to or even better than models with reasoning, with more efficient token-level inference. The lengthy reasoning process of LRMs, or large reasoning models, becomes wasteful and inefficient. They call this the phenomenon of overthinking, meaning thinking too much. Second, on tasks of medium difficulty, the advantage of reasoning models are capable of generating long chains of thought starts to show, and the performance gap between model pairs increases. This is where the additional reasoning effort in large reasoning models brings clear benefits. Third and finally, on difficult tasks, both types of models completely collapse, unable to solve the problem. Even though large reasoning models may try a bit longer, in the end, they still fail, just like regular large language models. Next, the second finding from this research paper is the reasoning effort of AI will increase with the complexity of the problem, up to a certain point. In other words, when the problem reaches a level that's too difficult, AI will know to give up and won't want to put in any more effort or care to solve the problem anymore. You might think that when a problem gets harder, AI would have to think more, right? It would have to spend more time, more effort thinking, right? But the research observed that a model that's actually counterintuitive to us. At first, as the problem gets more complex, AI will increase its reasoning effort. But when it hits a certain threshold, right before it collapses, it will start to give up. It will reduce its reasoning effort, even though there's still plenty of token resources for it to keep thinking. So that means when the difficulty reaches a certain threshold, AI won't just fail to solve the hard problem, but it will also give up on putting in more thought as the problems get harder. Honestly, at this point, I feel like AI is actually a lot like humans. Like when things go from easy to a bit hard, we really try to put in the effort. But when it gets too hard, we just give up early to save ourselves the trouble, save our energy. Alright, the third finding from this research paper is analyzing the intermediate reasoning traces provided by the LRM shows that the performance of the models will depend on the complexity of the problem. With simple problems, they usually find the correct answer very early, but then keep thinking unnecessarily, even trying out some wrong solutions. With problems of medium difficulty, the reasoning process is relatively efficient. They will explore, make mistakes, then self-correct, and finally, come up with the correct answer. As for very complex problems, they will be completely helpless and give up. Not a single correct solution is produced throughout the reasoning process of these models. The fourth finding from Apple's research: AI cannot perform accurate calculations. Even when researchers provide AI with the exact algorithm to solve the puzzle, its performance still doesn't improve. It will still fail at the same point. In theory, searching for and designing a solution should require more computational power, right? Compared to just executing an algorithm that's already been provided. But here, even when we give it the solution to the problem, it still can't do it. This shows that AI doesn't really understand and follow logical steps. The fifth and final finding: AI's reasoning ability is inconsistent across different types of puzzles. A model might do really well with this puzzle, but still fail miserably with another puzzle. The reason is that with common types of puzzles, the model will have many similar problems in its training data, so the AI will be more likely to solve them correctly. But with less common types of puzzles, it will have less training data, which leads to the AI performing much worse at solving the problem. This suggests that what we call reasoning in AI models might just be a form of pattern matching. That is, matching patterns, or simply memorizing, from cases it has learned from previous training datasets, rather than actual reasoning ability. True generalization. Okay, so those are the 5 key findings, the 5 main discoveries in Apple's newly published research paper. If you read between the lines, kind of get the implied meaning, then with this research paper, Apple is directly calling out its competitors like OpenAI, Google, Claude, DeepSeek. The claims made by these competitors about AI having human-like thinking and reasoning abilities, that artificial general intelligence, AGI, is just around the corner, are just marketing tactics. FOMO, hype to manipulate consumers. But in reality, AI is still pretty clueless. There are still a lot of things that need improvement. The context in which this research was released is also quite noteworthy. Apple published this research paper right before the WWDC 2025 event, which is their biggest annual event for developers, the largest of the year for them. With a big company like Apple, this can't be a coincidence. It's definitely part of their strategy. At a time when the entire tech world is in an AI arms race, and many people criticize Apple for being too slow, they've chosen to go in the opposite direction, raising a big question mark about the actual reasoning abilities of current AI models. In the next part of the video, I'll discuss a bit about how we can interpret what Apple is trying to say. Apple will be competing from the position of a latecomer, moving slower than its rivals, and what their AI strategy will look like in the near future. By the way, just a quick reminder in case you didn't know, I offer consulting services for implementing AI and automation solutions for small businesses and startup teams. So if you're a small business owner, a startup founder, and you're looking to apply AI to grow your business, boost productivity, and cut down on your company's costs, then feel free to reach out to me. You can find my contact information in the channel description section, right in my channel's About section. Alright, if you're still here, watching up to this point, I really appreciate it. Okay, I'll wrap up this video here. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.